What is your earliest childhood memory? Okay, before you even get started typing, let me save you some time and let you know that you're probably wrong. Time for me to literally ruin your childhood. Alright, seriously, according to the demographics from my last few videos, this is still the most relevant flashbulb memory question. Where were you when you first heard about 9/11? Go ahead and write it in the comments. If you're a Generation Xer, where were you when you first heard about the Challenger explosion? If you're a baby boomer, JFK's assassination. And believe it or not, there's actually enough people to make this a relevant question too. Where were you when the carrier pigeon or telegram or whatever arrived telling you about Pearl Harbor? Go ahead and write it in the comments along with which situation applies to you so that people can make fun of how old you are. Don't worry, I'll wait. Actually, while I'm out here, I'm gonna go check the mail. Rich and famous, you want a piece of me? Oh my god, that Britney's shameless, you want a piece of me? Okay, done? Well, you probably already know what I'm going to tell you next. You're probably completely wrong about where you were and who told you. Flashbulb memories have several definitions, but the one I prefer is the one about the super cool generational phenomenon, where everyone remembers their specific situation surrounding a common event. These common events are pretty rare, happening only every 20 years or so. Luckily, they were pretty well studied by the time 9/11 rolled around, so several professors had the foresight to have their students write down where they were and who they heard it from. Several years later, they were asked to write it again, and you'd be surprised at how many of them got it completely wrong. How is this possible?
Well, it's not enough to say that those students were simply stupid or scatterbrained. Your brain is not a perfect video camera capturing all audio and visual information and storing it for later. And knowing that makes it impossible for me to enjoy movies like Limitless.
Something wrong in law school?
How do you know I'm in law school?
People who aren't usually don't carry around dry, academically constipated books about a dead Supreme Court justice.
You're a creep, aren't you? You've been following me.
No, I just noticed the book.
You just saw the corner of it. How did you know that?
I'd seen it before, 12 years ago in college. Sitting on the couch of a TA I was trying to make, waiting for her to come back out of the bathroom, hoping she'd have a condom. Somehow my unconscious had served that up. A memory I'd never even recorded, or was it there the whole time, and all I needed was the access.
No, that's not how memory works. That's not... Well, I hope you don't mind, but I still have to make dinner. I know I'm not a cooking show, but man's gotta eat, right? Anyway, I know nootropic is a drug that increases cognitive ability. They do exist, though not nearly on the scale of what's in the movie. Over-the-counter drugs like ginkgo biloba or caffeine have some minor effect in some very specific situations. ADHD drugs, on the other hand, have a much more profound effect. But they only help you from the moment that they take effect. They don't magically go back 12 years and help you for a memory that you never even intentionally recorded in the first. So if your brain isn't a perfect video camera recording all audio and visual information for you to retrieve years later, how does memory work? Well, every time you retrieve a memory, it's reconstructed on the spot. You might think this is a pretty inefficient way to store memories, and it is. It's like having every song on your iPod in a compressed zip file. Every time you want to listen to something, you'd have to decompress it. The quality is going to be garbage, and if you go long enough without accessing it at all, it's going to be corrupt. But this system worked with hundreds of thousands of years of prehistory when no one was going to fact check how big that fish you caught really was. So because our memories are reconstructed from such a flimsy skeleton every time you want to remember something, it's subject to a number of errors. 7 to be exact. In his 2001 book, Daniel Schacter outlined what he called the 7 sins of memory. The 7 sins can be divided into 2 groups: sins of omission, when you leave something out, and sins of commission, when you add or change something. The first sin of omission is transience. As I said before, the longer you go without accessing a memory, the more likely it is to be decayed. How long it takes to decay depends entirely on how important your brain thinks the information is. I say your brain because if you remember from the dreams video, your brain spends most of your non-REM sleeping time sorting through the memories that you accumulated that day and figuring out which ones are important enough for storage. The more important it is, the longer you'll be able to access it. This could be anywhere from years to just minutes. The second sin is absent-mindedness. Basically, you forgot to hit record on your metaphorical camera, so now you're not paying enough attention to even get a basic sketch of what happened. Most illicit substances come with this price tag, but for most normal people, this could be as simple as not paying attention when you put your phone down, so now you have to try and find it by calling it or something, but you can't because you don't have your phone. Blocking is the final sin of omission, and it's the primary cause of the tip of the tongue phenomenon. That's when you know something, but you just can't get to that information. Like when you're trying to remember an actor's name and all you think about is Matt Damon. You know it's not Matt Damon, but Matt Damon is all you think about. That's blocking. Thanks a lot, Matt Damon. Luckily, I showed you a good workaround for this last video with dreaming, unless like me, you dream about Matt Damon. The second group of sins are sins of commission. Sins of commission are why that fish gets bigger every time you tell the story, or why you're telling a story to a group and your friend knows that what you're saying actually happened to him, but he lets you finish the story anyway because he's a cool guy. It's also why you're the most unreliable, yet weirdly most trusted source of information when it comes to witnessing a crime, a video topic in itself. The first sin of commission is misattribution. This is when you can correctly recall a memory, but you can't correctly source that memory. So you think it happened to you, but really you saw it in a movie or a friend told you about it. Now it's time for me to make good on that promise and ruin your childhood. So first we got our diced sausages. A lot of your childhood memories are not actually your own memories. They're stories about you that your parents told you. They may be true, but odds are you don't remember them as they actually happened. Go ahead and put some freshly chopped onions in there. You remember them as they were told to you by your lovingly biased parents. But thanks to misattribution, you've long forgotten that you were actually told this story and just assume it's a valid memory. Fresh pico. Never mind the container. I should really talk to that you suck at cooking guy. This may have also been what happened with your flashbulb memory. You may have remembered it one way, but then your friend came to you months or years later and told you their version. You remember them being there with you, and their version is completely different. So now you either have to incorporate their version or change their version entirely. This often happens unconsciously. It's not an error of stupidity, it's an error of trust. Alright, we get this pizza crust that I made earlier. This little bit of fancy pants olive oil. This is somewhat related to the next sin, suggestibility. Suggestibility occurs well after the memory has been stored, when you hear conflicting information and incorporate that as part of your own memory. Get yourself some pizza sauce. This is a major problem in eyewitness testimony and is often why witnesses are separated from each other before their accounts can be gathered. If you remember that jewelry thief was wearing a red trench coat, said something about San Diego, then you overhear the store clerk saying that she was wearing a red trench coat and that her last name was San Francisco. You begin to doubt your own memory. Was it San Diego? The clerk was closer. Maybe it was San Francisco. Make sure to spread that out evenly. So in your question, you're pretty sure it was a red trench coat because that was confirmed by the clerk. But now you're unsure about the San Diego-San Francisco thing. Which one was it? And was that where she was from? Was that where she was going? Or was that her last name? You're unsure, so you better go with the story that the other person said because she sounded pretty sure. Then you get yourself some completely processed cheese. It just isn't good without those steroids and antibiotics in it. Bias is by far the most fun of the commission sins. There are literally dozens, if not hundreds, of different biases that can affect your memory. Basically, your memory is not reconstructed in the context of how you felt and believed at the time, but rather how you feel and believe now. Think back to high school. For most of you, you're going to remember it being the most fun time of your life, even though if you really think about it, it's just as much of an emotional bag as any other point of your life. Talking to a new group of friends that you're trying to impress, maybe even some girls, this is when you're going to round up your GPA just a little bit, or maybe even add a few inches. To the fish that you caught, grow up. A lot of the biases that affect memory fall under the category of being self-serving. You want to remember yourself being just a little bit better than you really are. These aren't always a conscious altering of the memory. If you've ever changed your mind on a hot-button political issue, you may look back on your younger self and think, I was always a little bit on that side, even though you totally never were. Let's say you voted for someone who turned out to be a little bit less than what you expected. At the time you voted for him because you were very pro that guy, but now when you tell the story you voted for him because you were more anti the other guy. These are related to the always fun hindsight bias or I knew it all along bias. How many times have you caught yourself saying, I knew that would happen, but you didn't stop your friend from doing whatever stupid thing he was about to do because let's face it, you didn't know it was going to happen. The final sin is persistence. It's commission's answer to blocking. This is when you have a memory that repeats itself over and over even when you want it to stop. It's commonly associated with PTSD and depression, but it has a lighter side as well. Ever have a song stuck in your head?
This is I sound so rich and famous. You want a piece of me? Oh my god, that Britney shit. Do you want a piece of me?
Yeah, me neither. But side note, the more you try to suppress the song, the more likely it is to play over and over. It's been hypothesized that the reason the song repeats itself over and over is because your brain subconsciously knows that there's an end to the song and it's just trying to get there. So one way to try to get rid of it is to just indulge and sing the song all the way through to completion. For the psychology students out there who stumbled on my video in order to study for a memory test, one of my professors came up with a pretty easy mnemonic device to help remember the sins of memory. Sins of omission are tab, and sins of commission are miss BP. So the next time someone asks you where you were when you first heard about something, or a friend is telling you a story about a fish that you actually caught, or you catch yourself lying to your kids about how awesome high school is going to be, take a second to think about what might be affecting your memory, because now you know better.